Here is a bit of an overview of my Lightroom editing workflow. So to start with, I'll show you my file organization. So I've copied over the files from the SD card from my shoot into a folder. I've got my folders organized by date. You can see that the dates are in reverse, so year, month, day, and then I've got the label for the shoot. I've then got some labels for each of the files, edits, originals, and social media size. So I've just opened up Lightroom. I can change some of those menus at the top to make it a bit simpler, and then I've just clicked import on the bottom left hand side of the screen. And when this the file searcher comes up, I click on the two little arrows, go into that folder, and I select the original files that I want to use. I select the folder, I check that they're all the files I want to use are checked. So there's the check all and uncheck all button, and you can uncheck them individually if you need to, and then you click import, and then Lightroom will do its thing and import the photos, all of them into the catalog. So you can see up on the left there that it's importing them in, and it starts building like little previews kind of thing of them on the screen. You can see like all the thumbnails of each of the photos. So depending how many files you have and like the size of the files, it may take a while to bring them into Lightroom. You can just leave it. You can see the loading bar up the top left hand side of the Lightroom screen. Nearly done. There we go, so it's loaded all of the files in. You can see if you scroll down, so this is the small thumbnail viewer. So now we're going to make it into a contact sheet. So you select all your files using Control A or Windows key A if you're using the Macs in the college. You then click on print, and over on the left hand side you click on 4x5 contact sheet. The only other thing you need to select on the right hand side, if you want to change it, is what's displayed under the photo. So you can change it to be a number of things, but the two that I find most helpful is the exposure, so the settings for the photo or the file name. And then you want to click on print job down the bottom, print to, change it to JPEG file, and print to file, and then you can select where you want it to save. So I accidentally saved at the wrong spot there, so I just go back in and I make a new folder, call it contact sheets. Select the folder, and then you can see up the top left hand side it says preparing print job, but it's saving that then as a JPEG, and then that'll save each of the contact sheets, so each of the pages with the photos onto a JPEG file in your folder. Okay, so the next thing that you can look at is editing. So down the bottom kind of left hand side of the screen, you can change from the thumbnail view to a single photo, and then you can see here that before I start editing, I'm actually flicking through the photos and rating and kind of culling the images. So you can see as I flick through, you'll see like rating set to pop up on the screen, rating set to 3, or something like that. So I'm just doing that as I going through using the arrow keys. I'm clicking 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 on my keypad on my keyboard, and that just creates a star rating for those photos, and it just makes it a little bit easier to go through and edit them without worrying about all oh my god without worrying about all of the editing all of the photos. So you can see here, these ones I've actually clicked the X on the keyboard, and they're kind of grayed out, so they were coming up a little bit blurry, so I just rejected them because they weren't of use to me, but they will come up on the contact sheet. So it shows me kind of how all the photos you take, no matter whether they're blurry, too dark, too light, whatever, it gives me an idea of all the photos you've taken. So these photos were taken over the weekend. We went out to Curran Forest, did the Square Rock walk in the snow. So there's lots of ones where my partner grabbed the camera and took funny photos of me. And then I was taking some landscape photos, some photos of some different things I saw as I was walking around, and photos of my partner as well. So yeah, if you have a few similar shots as well, but slightly different composition, that's where like the rating system can really help narrow down which photo you actually want to edit. Oh, look at those snowflakes. Yeah, so it just helps narrow them down. You can see how the star rating comes up underneath, so you can also click in where it's got the stars there, but it's just easy to hit the keys on the keypad. And then I've clicked over on the right hand side and clicked rated, so then only the rated images come up at the bottom. And now we can get started on editing. So I've clicked over to the develop tab at the top, and I'm just playing around with all of the sliders in the basic panel to start with. Adjusting the highlights, shadows, whites and blacks, and the exposure, getting it at a place where I'm happy with it. And then I'm just adjusting the temperature slider here to get the white balance accurate. And then what you can do here is if you have a couple of photos taken in a similar lighting situation, is if I select both of them using the shift and the arrow key, I can sync that edit. So I can sync the adjustments I've made for one of them across. So you'll see me do this a couple of times here. I've edited one and then I sync across to get some of the adjustments matching. And so now I've just gone down into the color adjustment panel, and I'm just adjusting the hue and the luminance of the yellow jacket a little bit, just to make it pop out a bit more against the background. And then I'm playing around with the texture, clarity and dehaze sliders to have a look at what they do to the image. And then after I do an edit, I click over to the before and after just to see the changes that I've made and how different it is, and if it's still like an accurate representation of the photo. So repeat this process for the photos that I've rated. So I'll go through, I'll play around with the basic edits, the tone curve, the colors. You can see here that I'm playing around with matting the black. So if you slide the bottom of the tone curve up, it takes out the darkest part and makes it more of a dark grey rather than a black. And that's kind of a style trend that some photographers like to do. So on this particular photo, because the white is so bright, I matted the blacks and brought them up a little bit just to minimize the amount of contrast, because I didn't want as much contrast in this one. And I'm just seeing what the color sliders do here with the the tree trunks and the colors in the background and the leaves on the trees and that kind of thing. So this photo is a bit darker than the first one, so my camera settings or the lighting in the environment must have changed. So I'm playing around with the exposure and basic adjustments again, and then syncing them across to some of the similar photos. So you kind of want to tweak each and every photo. You don't want to sync your edits across all of them, just like putting a filter on. Every photo is going to be slightly different and you need to tweak it and kind of get the best out of each photo. So when I got to this photo here of the tree, I kind of made it a little bit warmer as I was looking up. The colors of the leaves kind of came through with the sun coming out and made it a lot warmer. So when I edited this one, I kind of made it kind of a warmer vibe overall. And you can see here I can actually change the color of the leaves from an orange to a green, whatever tickles your fancy. So even you can see there I've adjusted the luminance, and that kind of adjusts the amount of detail and the brightness of the actual color as well. So you could see the difference that made in the picture. So some of the changes are only subtle, but it can really make the biggest impact on your photos as well. So with this one, you can see that in syncing the edit, the two photos that are quite similar are consistent and they have a similar edit between the two photos. So that's one thing that's really important with your photos, is if you're editing a series of photos, you want to have consistency between like the style of your editing for each of them. So this is where syncing the edits and syncing the color changes can be helpful in making sure that the editing is consistent. It's interesting sometimes as well to play around with black and white photos and color photos, and seeing, like you can see with this one, as soon as I put a black and white preset on, the whites became way too bright. So this is where I've adjusted the exposure down a little bit to bring out that detail in the snow, and then I'm going to use an adjustment brush to dodge and lighten me and my partner in this photo, so it's a more even exposure and you can still see the detail in the snow without it being too bright. So this is just adjusting a couple of photos with the crop tool, so I can straighten them, I can adjust the crop. So you can do this either at the start of the editing process or at the end after you kind of have edited some of the colors and that kind of thing. So I didn't really do it to many of the photos in this set, I just wanted to show you on this first photo. So once you've finished editing your photos, you want to click through and check that the editing is consistent, and if you want to change anything. And then you can click back to library view, click to the thumbnails, you select them all again, Windows key A or Control A, and then you click export, and you can put them in that edits folder that you created at the start. So you should have in your folder contact sheet, edits, originals, and sometimes you might have a social media folder. So you might save your photos at a smaller size, which is more suitable for social media. So you'll just see here as well that I changed the file names to have my brand Tiffany Alexandria Photography at the start of the file name, so every file is saved with my name on it. And then I've just clicked export, and this will take a few minutes to export. You can see up the top again it has a little loading bar, so you can see where it's at. So as these were actually exporting and I looked at them again in the thumbnail view here, I decided I kind of wanted to go back in and edit them a little bit further. I didn't think the editing was as consistent across all the images as I would have liked. So in a second you'll see I've gone back in and edited them a little bit further, just to make it a little bit more consistent across all of them. So if I just have a look in that folder, you'll see they've exported into the edits folder, and that they all have my name in the file name. So here you'll see I went back in and edited them. I did have those couple that were a little bit warmer, and I decided to go through and carry that through all of the photos. There were a few that ended up a little bit more cooler toned with the white balance than the others, and now you can see as a whole they look a lot more consistent, especially when you view them all together like this in the thumbnail view. So I just exported them again into that same folder, and I got them it comes up and I got them to overwrite the original files, so the original ones I exported weren't in there. So then that just exports again and saves in that same spot. Hope this was helpful. Let me know if there's any other tutorials that would be helpful for me to record on my process.